Hello chess friends and welcome to Zarov's chess channel and welcome to the Lindores Abbey Rapid challenge in 2020. It's again Hikaru Nakamura against Daniil Dubov. In the first day Hikaru Nakamura took the win, then in the second day it was Daniil's Dubov day. He won the second match game and now in the third match game they face each other again with a great finals. I think in the first game of this third match game Hikaru Nakamura managed to get a draw, so he has now sort of a slightly advantage and plays now with the white pieces against Daniil Dubov. Whoever wins, I think, one game in this match game will probably win it, because it's really hard to get back in after loss. So we saw also Magnus Carlsen, after losing the game against Hikaru Nakamura, had troubles to get somehow into the game. Let's see now what happened of this in this second game of the third match game. So Hikaru, as I said, with the white pieces, played e4. We have c5, knight to f3. Knight to c6, and after knight to c3 we have g6, the Dragon Sicilian. And for me it was really cool to see a Dragon Sicilian, because it's not so often played in this top Grandmaster level, but you see how great this opening sometimes can be. It's really a cool opening because the power of the Dragon Bishop is always good to have, because you see also in this game how Daniil Dubov activated this bishop. Here after the move d4, c takes d, knight takes d, we have now sort of an accelerated Dragon Sicilian. And if you're familiar with my YouTube chess channel, I've created this hyper accelerated Dragon Sicilian defense series, over 20 videos from Black's perspective. You can also check out my series. I think it's good. You can maybe have a good opening repertoire with Black. Here after the move bishop to g7, we have the common Yugoslav attack setup. We want to play queen to d2, f3 from White's perspective, h4, h5, attacking Black's dark square bishop, and wait Black to castle into the attack and maybe create h-file attack, sort of a queen and rook battery on the h-file, and even some checkmate threats. So this is the main idea, but Daniil Dubov plays this accelerated Dragon Sicilian, which is more active, more aggressive, and basically it doesn't allow Hikaru Nakamura to go into this common Yugoslav attack. Here after the move knight to f6, we have bishop to c4, still common theory, and after castling, bishop to b3, played by Hikaru. What the good thing, and I've explained it also in my series, is that Daniil Dubov hasn't played the move d6, because the d6 move it's common to the normal Dragon Sicilian defense. Here Daniil Dubov doesn't play this move, and it's better because we don't lose any tempo. So that's why this is sort of an accelerated dragon. It's also named like this, accelerated Dragon Sicilian. Now we have really a tempo, really a +1 tempo, which allows us now to play more actively with our pieces. So I don't play myself this d6, so that's why I'm really familiar with these setups here by Black. Here in the game we have rook to e8, played by Daniil Dubov, and the problem is, if you try f3, as I said, White's main idea is to play queen to d2, g4, h4, maybe h5, somehow h takes g, after this queen and bishop battery, to play something like bishop to h6, trade off the bishops, and then creating a rook and queen battery, as I said. But the good thing about this move rook to e8 is also, if your opponent tries sometimes the move bishop to h6, then you see you don't have anymore the rook on f8. Then you can escape with the bishop and stay with your bishop on this diagonal. So very nice opening prep here by Daniil Dubov. We have here instead of this f3, knight to c6, knight takes c6 by Hikaru Nakamura, and after d takes c6, here Daniil Dubov is simplifying the position. If you want to trade off the queens, this is basically a drawish position. So it's a provocative trades of pieces here to challenge Hikaru Nakamura in the center immediately, forcing maybe the trades of queens. And Hikaru, of course, a great attacker, a great tactician, doesn't want to go into drawish lines by trading off the queens. That's why I really like this move in d takes c6 instead of b takes c6, because if you take with the b pawn, then you get something like e5. It's very dangerous. You don't have good squares. You basically forced to play something like knight to d5, losing a pawn maybe to get some kind of an activity. But okay, here in the game d takes c6 was played, and now h3, queen to c7. It's Daniil Dubov who's getting out of the d file, of course trying also to challenge here Hikaru on the d file with the rook. And I like so far Black's position, because White hasn't made progress like Hikaru wanted to. Probably Black has a still good activity. The good thing about this setup is that this light bishop has still a good diagonal. Sometimes in the Dragon Sicilian defense you have troubles in order to develop your light square bishop. Here in the game f4, Hikaru gets straightforward. He wants to still continue his attack, but here simply b5. We have now a very aggressive move by Daniil Dubov, which is of course the main idea about this move is to play b4, deflecting the knight from the defense of the e5, and here Hikaru counterattacks immediately with the move e5, and again we have a counterattack here by Daniil Dubov. So great game so far, really active game. The problem is you cannot take the knight here by Hikaru. It seems that after b takes c3 you're losing another piece, but that's not the point here. Daniil Dubov has prepared some tactics. After e takes f6, you see now there are two pieces that are attacked. That's why this rook to e8 was a powerful idea. We have an discovered attack on the bishop and also on the knight here. White is, I think, simply lost. Whatever you do, you lose simply a piece. Black has the activity all over the board and has really a comfortable game, I think. So that's why here knight to f4, played by Hikaru. We have a knight to d5. And okay, if you try something like bishop takes d5, it seems like an aggressive move. Okay, c takes d5, queen takes d5. Still, I think you cannot take this pawn because you get bishop to e6. And Black simply loves these types of positions to maybe sacrifice the pawn, but getting with his bishops into very, very actively. You would be forced to play a passive move like queen to d2 in order to defend your c2 pawn, but now simply rook to d8. You're again forced to play something like queen to f2, maybe rook to c8. You see, Black has really a dominant position, and the main goal here in this types of position would be maybe just somehow to play the move f6 and activate even the dark square bishop. So here, that's why after the move knight takes knight to d5, we have queen to f3, and now knight takes e3. After queen takes e3, we have a new position in which Black has the advantage, of course, of the bishop pair. But the problem is this bishop on g7 is blocked out by this very nice pawn structure. The main strategical goal here for Black is to somehow get this bishop active. There are now several possibilities how to do that. Either you can play g5 or you can play the move f6. So f6 is of course so far not possible because the bishop is aiming very actively here. g5 would be risky in this stage of the game because White hasn't castled so far, so we don't know where White is going to castle, where White will coordinate the attack. So that's why g5 would be very risky. After g5, maybe White could castle queenside immediately, or even kingside, maybe opening the f-file. So far Daniil Dubov waits a little bit and plays a5 with the idea to activate this bishop maybe here to a6, then never allow Hikaru Nakamura to castle here anymore, and Hikaru queenside castle. So we have now what I've always liked, an opposite side attack game in a Dragon Sicilian. So this is really a great game so far. Of course, White will try the attack here with g4, maybe f5 moves. On the other hand, Black will try, if the position allows it, some c5, and then after that c4. So c5 is so far not possible because this knight plays a very important defensive role here. Queen to a7. Here Daniil Dubov tries to trade off the queens, simplify the position, and get his goal maybe to push the pawn on c5. So queen to e4, we have bishop to f5. You see how actively this bishop's come into the game, and when you have the bishop pair, it's good sometimes even to sacrifice the pawn, because queen takes c6 wouldn't be a good idea here. There are simply too many threats here. Rook to c8, opening the c-file, many tactical possibilities. Queen to e3 is also very dangerous with after that queen takes f4. So too many tactical possibilities here. Daniil Dubov played really an active game. Queen to c4, and now queen to e3. We have king to b1, and now bishop to e6. Now Hikaru plays queen to d4 in order to simplify the position, because the good thing now for White is that we could get rid maybe of this bishop on e6. So here Daniil Dubov simply takes. After rook takes d4, we have rook to d8. And here I think Hikaru makes maybe his first inaccuracy in the game. He plays rook to d1, which wasn't the most accurate moves. I think rook to d8, rook takes d8, and now bishop to e6 is maybe a better position, simplify the position after f takes e6. Okay, still black could make progress with the move g5 in order to split pawns here, but still we have counterattack possibilities with knight to c5. We could play maybe something like king to c1, rook to d1, because this bishop is far away from the action a little bit, and this pawns could be in weakness in long term. So that's why I think this could be playable for white. But in the game here, as I said, Hikaru played rook to d1. We have rook takes d1, rook takes d1, and now bishop to c8. Daniil Dubov realized maybe his inaccuracy. He doesn't want to trade off the bishops. He wants to stay with the bishop pair on the board. And we have knight to b6, and now c5. And now comes, I think, the critical moment of the game. Here Hikaru plays really... It's not a blunder, it's really not a mistake, it's sort of an inaccuracy which allows black, I think, to come very actively into the game. So this bishop was blocked out, as I said. Here Hikaru has two good choices, I think. He can play rook to d5 or rook to c4, simply counter-attacking here against this pawn. This pawn would be undefendable. Even if you try something like rook to d8, we can still always cover this first rank with king to c1 ideas. But here Hikaru plays a passive move, rook to d2. So here he had really the opportunity to counterplay, played really a passive move, and now it's black that has really a slightly better position here, g5. Finally, this goal has to be played here, splitting the pawns. Even if you try to play something like a g3 here in order to support your f4 pawn, still we can take, and then after that we can play bishop to h6. So it's a very, very unpleasant position here for white to play. Here rook to d5, Hikaru realizes his mistakes. He should have stayed with his rook much more active into the game. We have simply g takes f4, rook takes c5, and now f3. Very nice. You see, when you have the bishop here, you have to split pawns, open diagonals, open files. It create weak pawns. So the bishops will love, of course, weak pawn position. So now after g takes f3, we have bishop takes h3, and what we have accomplished here from black's perspective is this pass pawn on the h file. So so far, if we evaluate this endgame sort of by the potential promotion, black is of course a little bit faster. So this h-pawn is now our main strategical element in this endgame. After rook takes a5, it's not a problem, because here rook to d8, we threatening again this idea to play rook to d1 checkmate. And that's why here Hikaru played a4. But now after b takes a3, Hikaru makes, I think, again, sort of an inaccuracy. He takes here, b takes a3. The better idea, I think, maybe is to play knight to d5. Simplify, maybe trying to get this knight very active into the game. Also lock here this d file. But after b takes a3, okay, white has also now pass pawn, but this e5 is a weakness. We still can pass through, and here in the game e6 played by Daniil Dubov, very important move, because white would love now even to play here the move e6 after bishop takes e6, bishop takes e6 and f takes e6. Then the pawn structure wouldn't be so powerful, although we have sort of a 3 versus 2 situation or 3 versus 1 situation on the king side. It's very hard to play this endgame, and now white would then be on the advantage because white has 2 pass pawns. So that's why e6, great defensive move. And now king to a2, here a4, h5, simply pushing our pawn, and now rook to a4. Hikaru wants to stop this position, but you lose simply your weak pawn on e5. You see, that was this g5 idea to split pawns, split the pawn chain in order to liberate our dragon bishop. It's a very cool idea here by Daniil Dubov. Now the dragon has come into the game very actively. Now you see this bishop on e5, which is the main goal in the Dragon Sicilian, is activated, in basically white is simply lost here. So here rook to d4, e4 played by Hikaru, bishop to f6. We have rook to e1, and now simply pushing forward h4. Now this pawn is rolling with the support of these 2 bishops. Rook to g1, not a problem. We can hide with our king to f8, knight to c4, and now bishop to f5. It's very hard now even for white to push pawns, because this is the power of the bishops when we play on both sides on the board. Because if white even tries here to push pawns, these pawns can always be catched with this bishop, because Bishops are, of course, long-range pieces, so you can play on both sides. On the other hand, you see the knight now in an open game is simply too slow for this position. So rook to h1, we have rook to d4, knight to e3, and now simply bishop to g6. We don't want to trade off some more pieces, because then the position is much more simplified. We would go simply into a opposite color bishop game, which could maybe end in a draw. a4 here by Hikaru, but it's a little bit too late here. Bishop to h5, simply attacking the weakness on f3. We have a5, and now bishop takes f3. This game is really over, because after rook to f1, we have rook to f4, simplifying here, protecting our bishop, and now it's time to simply push forward the pawn. a6, here you see, that's what I meant. The bishops are long-range pieces that can activate. You can activate them all over the board. Here, after rook to e1, rook to e4, played by Daniil Dubov, and in this position, Hikaru resigned. Nothing you can do, even if you try knight to g2 in order to protect. Here we can simply take, and again, we are not losing material. This is game over. So, great game by Daniil Dubov, but this slight inaccuracies by Hikaru Nakamura cost him the game. We'll see what will happen now in the next two games. Still, Hikaru has chances, but this was, I think, the shocking moment. We'll see. As I said, we're following this super final now. Further, if you want to see some more analyzed games from this tournament, check out my commented chess games. Here's the link, and you can also watch my best chess games of all time if you want to see the best chess games that have been ever played in chess history. See you soon with some more videos, and chess is the best, of course.